This is my in-course correction presentation. I am Allison Strantz, and this is for the American College of Education. The lesson I designed is for a high school financial literacy class, where they will be researching the relationship between credit scores, interest rates, length of a loan, and total amount paid for a car. In the second activity of my mini lesson, I tasked the students to create a chart with the information they researched. I pushed out the following document for them to fill out through Google Classroom and Google Drive. The chart details what information I want them to find, including researching interest rates for certain credit scores and providing a space for the information. I would go right in these columns right here. I've also included a link for an interest rate loan calculator, which is a very useful tool for them, as they'll be using this to figure out the total price of the car that they pick out. Because I use Google Classroom and Google Drive, I am able to see the students' work in real time. I can also tell who is doing what work, as Google color codes it. For this example, I noticed a group who has picked out the make and the model for their new car and has researched the MSRP, but then they get stuck. Yes, for this mock student work, I chose a very expensive car. My students do this often. They might as well dream. One of the obstacles they might face is where to find the information. One way to help them out is to give them links they can use without actually doing the work for them. As you can see, this is a good starting point for information on interest rates based on credit score. And this website is actually very, very good. It shows what the first 60-month loan for a new car, very good credit versus not so good credit. It also goes through how long loans and how that affects your interest rate. So it's a very useful tool for them to use. Once they have this information, it might be helpful for them to see how the loan calculator actually works. And so for this example, I'm just going to put in just some mock data. So let's do a $5,000, a 3-year loan at 5% interest. And then they hit the calculate button. Sometimes the students don't know what information to put where or where the final information is located. So here you can see that it shows total principal paid and the total interest. It does not show the total amount of the loan. So they're going to have to do some math. Sometimes they throw them off as they're looking for the total answer. So I oftentimes remind them to take the principal plus the interest is the total amount that they will be paying for that item. Because I use Google Classroom, I was able to see in real time that these students had hit a learning wall. I didn't get to the end of the lesson to find this group wasn't able to complete the assignment. I also have a tool called Land School. This allows me to see what my students are working on at all times. I actually see their computer screen. Because I'm not actually in my classroom right now, and I don't actually have students, I cannot show you how this works, but it gives me a visual of what every student is accessing on their computer at that moment. And yes, I have caught many students playing a game or shopping while they should be working. Surprise. My total lesson, I believe, incorporates Chickering and Damson's 7 principles. This is also a good checklist to look for areas I might need to in-course correct if our students are struggling. Principle 1 is to encourage contact between students and instructor. By using Google Classroom and Land School, I'm able to make real-time observations of my students' work, thus being able to know if any students are struggling, thus being able to course correct. In my experience, high school students are often shy about asking for help. They don't want to seem dumb in front of their peers. So they often just shut down and will just not complete their assignment. If I'm able to help them before this happens, their likelihood of success is higher. A huge advantage of this communication is that students know I care. I do not want them to shut down and fail. By helping them along, I can offer the encouragement they need to be successful. It's also a great reminder that it's not just the struggling students who need open communication, but the ones who are doing well need to know that as well. Students often learn from each other. This mini lesson is designed as a small group project, thus forcing the students to cooperate. Now, I remember back to my high school days of group projects, and it always seemed there was one person who did most of the work and that one person who skated on the backs of others. By using Google Classroom and Google Drive, I'm able to see who did what as each person's work is color coded. This also allows me to see which students shine in which tasks. Groups are often made stronger when they can use the specific skills of the individuals. Sometimes an in-course correction might be that I need to change the groups. As mentioned in one of the presentations, some groups just don't work well with each other. If my earlier in-course correction of helping the students with some information doesn't work, I might need to look at changing the groups. Learning is not a spectator sport. Most of what we learn and retain, we learn from doing, not just being told. This lesson has students discovering for themselves the relationship between credit scores, interest rates, length of a loan, and the total price paid for a car. I could have just told them that the better your credit score, the lower your interest rate, and therefore the less total price. However, research shows that when students actively learn a concept, they are more likely to retain that knowledge and apply it to their lives. One of the goals of this financial literacy class is for students to see how financial decisions apply to real life situations. By students actively researching this information of a real life situation, they are more likely to be engaged and to retain that information. Students need to know what they know and what they don't know. I begin this lesson with a previous knowledge assessment to ensure my students are ready to move to the next level. This assessment is done through Google Forms and is instantly graded so my students will know what they know and what they don't know. One thing I like to do is add a link to the questions they miss with the pertinent information about that topic. By using Google Classroom and Land School, I am able to monitor my students as they work. In my mock scenario, I'm able to see a couple of my students are stuck on their assignment by using this technology. I'm able to give them prompt and meaningful feedback to get them back on track to be successful. This isn't just necessary for struggling students, but students who are in task also need to know that they are doing it right. Like many people, my students are easily distracted and often need to be reminded to go back to work. Setting time expectations is important not only give students deadlines, but to accomplish learning goals. Setting realistic time expectations is also really important. Sometimes I need to remember that my students are learning a skill and they don't have the base knowledge that I do. What might take me 10 minutes might take them 20 or 30. At the same time, it's important for an instructor to keep those kids on task. Using technology allows me to ensure they are doing their work and not playing a game or looking up other random stuff on the internet. If this is accomplished, monitoring the time it takes for students to do the work can also alert me to students who are struggling. In my example, I noticed students aren't completing the assignment in an expected amount of time. so I'm able to do in-course correction and intervene to help. One of the most frustrating things I hear from students when I assign something is, how long does it have to be? Students work to the level we set for them. If we set the bar high, they will work higher. In my mock scenario, I see that two students are stuck. I could have let them fail, but by setting high expectations, I expect them to complete the assignment. So I give them some additional tools so they can be successful. When I create groups for my students, I try to take into consideration their strengths and weaknesses so the groups can help each other out. I know some of my students are great at research. Others are my visual creators. Others like to do the writing, but don't make them speak out loud. Hopefully, I can create groups that work well together, where every student brings their strengths to the table. Now, I do not always do a good job of that, and sometimes in-course correction needs to be made. In the case of my example, it could be those two groups need to be moved to another group. I might have created a group where I have all visual learners, or my presenters, but lacking the ones who can do the research or the writing. The second part of my presentation is going to focus on data collection and analysis. Teachers need data. Data tells us which students were successful in learning a concept and which students need remediation. Data tells us if we need to do an in-course correction. We gather data all the time. I use formal and informal data collection. I use formative and summative data collection. I use data to drive my instruction. I use data to differentiate my classes. Teachers need data. With data, teachers, principals, guidance counselors, everybody has a responsibility to use this data with ethical standards. According to the National Forum on Education Statistics, there are 9 canons of data ethics broken into 3 categories. The first one is the integrity canons. Demonstrate honesty, integrity, and professionalism at all times. This might sound obvious, but it's a very important concept to keep in mind at all times. All levels of education need to develop this culture. Appreciate that while data may represent attributes of real people, they do not describe the whole person. While data is vitally important to educators, it in no way describes the whole person. Be aware of applicable statutes, regulations, practices, and ethical standards governing data collection and reporting. Ignorance of the law does not excuse breaking it. Report information accurately and without bias. It is vital for data to be useful that it is accurate and unbiased. Be accountable and hold others accountable for ethical use of data. This goes back to the first canon and should be an institution-wide expectation. The data quality canons. Data is only as useful as the quality of the data. Promote data by adhering to best practices and operating standards. Data needs to be useful, valid, and reliable. Provide relevant data, definitions, and documentations to promote comprehensive understanding and accurate analysis when releasing information. Have you ever looked at a map without a key? The same type of information is necessary when releasing data. People need to know what they are reading. The security canons. Treat data systems as valuable organizational assets. They are expensive. Treat them well. Safeguard sensitive data to guarantee privacy and confidentiality. It is important to protect data of all our students to ensure their privacy. Best practices also need to be established that are FERPA compliant and follow any additional federal or state laws. And here are the sources I used for my presentation. Thank you very much.